Well, Dane, Dustin, thanks for being with us today. Appreciate it. Um, this is what we call our exit interviews, our second one for Ag Startup Engine in not so many months. So the acquisition of your business, Performance Livestock Analytics, was announced last month in April, an important marker in the brief history of your business. But you guys have been working on this for a while. Can you walk us through some of the important markers and kind of milestones that you can think of in the history of the business from the start to where you got to today?
Yeah, you bet. I'll start. Maybe Dustin follow along. But yeah, so obviously glad to join you, Kevin, and have this exit interview chat. Obviously, it's an exciting transition for the business, but it was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get here. And for us, it's, you call it an exit interview, but really it's the next step in this business and the growth of the company, right? And really that's as we see it, and that's the opportunity for us and our team. So it's exciting. But yeah, I mean, for us, the history of how the business started and really them key milestones, I'd say the first key milestone was the realization of both me and Dustin understanding there was a great market opportunity here, right? We were both working in our career with high growth companies. Both, it was on the West Coast, our prior two companies. Both of them were ag tech companies. They were both, obviously the one was Climate Corporation, the other one was Iteris, Clear Ag. They were row crop based. We both came from livestock operations. And, I always say, that, looking across the fence at livestock, it was an untouched industry when you think about ag tech and how the digitization was happening in row crop. Every planter had an iPad in the cab, real-time mapping was happening, yet these farmers were pen and paper. So that's milestone number one, was the realization of that.
Why do you think that is? I mean, yeah, just so little going on in the livestock space, at least at that time, maybe even now, but certainly several years ago compared to the crop space.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think it's a good question. I mean, when you think about even row crop, you had probably Precision Planning was the early leader within their digital mapping of field view, right? Mm-hmm. Field view today is a inception of what Precision Planning handed to climate. But otherwise, it took really the Climate Corporation to light the fire, mm-hmm. right? And that was a failed weather insurance play that pivoted into a digital platform play, right? And so I think overall, if you look at technology and software, people don't see this space as the large space to go after from a C-level perspective across other technology companies. And I think as an industry, traditionally, we're not resourced with technology domain to build software and have that. So generally it comes from the outside, the West Coast. And so I think as an industry, we're just kind of a laggard when you think about the focus, the people looking at this industry with excitement, and then the domain expertise and the capabilities of the people in the industry generally isn't about software or digitization. But Dustin, maybe it'd be good to hear what your opinion is.
Yeah, I think the expansion into the digital space into the livestock industry was going to be inevitable. It had to start somewhere. It started with the row crop. Dane told the story a little bit about how climate got started and how we saw climate truly jumpstart innovation in the technology space for row crop. And it was just inevitable to reach into the livestock space. The thing is, though, Dane and myself were especially Dane was at the ground floor at climate. So it gave us a lot of opportunities to look at how technology was evolving in the row crop space and really find our own path on the livestock industry. You're walking into an industry that is green pastures for any type of innovative technology. And so it gave us the opportunity to be the leaders within that industry.
And maybe there's just something about, I think you mentioned the domain expertise that goes with it, not climate, but I certainly have met other crop technology type businesses, at least from the West Coast, and listened to the pitch. And they think they know how to talk about Midwestern crop agriculture Maybe I don't think that they do, but I don't think I've heard many people try to pitch that they have expertise in livestock.
Right. Yeah. And what's, the what they have to their advantage though is they're fearless.
Yeah.
Right. Is that they're willing to go tackle it, not knowing what it is, but knowing it's an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, so many people who worked with the climate had come from a prior life of trying to start a company. And so, when you have someone that's taken a true fresh perspective at it, there is a more of a, I call it a paradigm leap of opportunity and change in an industry versus say someone that's been in the industry, they're used to doing something in a certain way and they're going to go try to do it a little better. Right. So it's a step change result. That's not game changing. Dustin has a lot of good examples as we look at how we innovate and develop and create within our company is that we're not looking at competing with technology companies within. It's what's Apple doing, what's Microsoft doing. You see companies like Apple that came out with one of the first smartphones that didn't have domain expertise in the phone space, but, provided that paradigm leap because of that. Right. And so, I think it's part of our, I think if we wouldn't have had that experience from climate, Iteris, I would call it a good and bad experience, right? Because it taught us, the ability to be fearless and go after it. And that people you're working with that don't have the domain expertise that, get the backing and continue to find true creativity. That was a big key piece, but also, we learned a lot about what not to do, right? Everyone talks about, climate signaling, really the big leap within digitization. Well, that was, the signaling was the acquisition, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we really didn't have market adoption yet. We had to pivot prior off of a weather insurance product into a digital platform because of a failing, basically, product opportunity. And then at Iteris Clear Ag, they were doing a weather analytics, play into a more of the R&D market within the agricultural business. So working with your big R&D projects within Bayer, Valent, whoever within weather analytics. But so they were both tough plays, super tough plays. We were on the business development side, and it was tough to sell. And the biggest thing we knew when we were going to go do this is we're going to go create a product that sells and that creates true value from the start, right? And saying, we're not going to go raise $100 million to go take a product and get it off the ground. We want to go sell something that works, that you don't have to fight your everyday off to go get a sale, right?
Like revenue from customers, maybe?
Right. And so, yeah, Dustin, I don't know your thoughts there.
Yeah, just take a little step back and I think there's no question that, my background and Dane's background within the livestock space helped us, and it also helped to differentiate ourselves from the Silicon Valley type companies as we're looking to work with customers in the Midwest area. There's no doubt that didn't help us, but is that piece what actually made us successful? I don't think so. Even if you look at the makeup of our entire team, upon acquisition, we had 43 full-time employees, and there was only one of those employees with true livestock educated background. Other than that, for us, when we hired individuals, we're looking for people that are willing to learn and are capable of grinding it out and having the mental fortitude to push forward when things get tough, and want to be aggressive and want to win and hate to lose. And those are the types of people that Dane and myself surrounded ourselves with, and what made us successful. More to what Dane was saying about, how we don't always look, at our competition for ideas and thoughts and how we're going to compete against them. To us, we looked at it as there are no competitors, and it is our turn. It is our chance to completely revolutionize the way we do something. and do it the right way the first time. Not say, oh, this company does this, so we should also do that and add this 10% more functionality or 10% more usability. To us, we were working on a blank slate. We're going to say, what is the most usable functional system that we can get out to the market and provide value to the producer on day one. And that's what we set out to do, and that's what we continue to set out to do. We don't look across the aisle. We are truly working on blank slates as best as possible.
When I first heard your pitch, I think you'd launched Cattle Crush, Performance Beef was in motion but hadn't been launched yet. I like the pitch, but if I had one reservation, if I can think back, it was just, and I don't bring the domain expertise that you do. My brother and I have a 15 to 25 head feedlots, very small time. But I just remember asking a question that was more or less like, okay, I like it, but how do you get these guys that run feed yards onto Performance Beef? And wow, have you done that? And I think you touched on some of the things just about value and so forth, but you're at what, more than 1,500 feedlots using your Performance Beef product every day now?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's right. And Dustin, I remember you commenting that the first kind of customers that came on were a different demographic than what you could expect. Could you talk about, what you've really learned as you ramped it up in that product in that space and what some of the surprises have been, because you've really just grown that business steadily since you launched the product?
Yeah. Truly, when we went out and built a system, we knew the number one quality in the system needed to be usability, right? We needed to design it in a way that anybody could pick it up and understand what needs to be accomplished and how to accomplish it without a user manual. One, I didn't want to write a user manual, but truly the value is somebody being able to pick up a piece of software and intuitively understand it, and they feel comfortable, because the more they use it, the more stickiness that product has. And for us, we had some great partners. I don't know if I want to call them partners, but people that we took our ideas to, and we took our designs to, and we tested out on them, and we got their feedback, and we listened, and we didn't listen so much about the features that they wanted to have, but more on how they were intuitively walking through the system. What questions did they ask in regards to how do you do such a thing? It was less about what does it do, but how does it get it done? And that's what we focused on in much of our development and how we move forward. I kind of have a name for myself in the company of somebody that says no to a lot of things, right? And the reason I say no to a lot of things is because it's so important to make systems simple, easy to use, intuitive, and automated in a way that you want to use it every single day. And that's what we accomplished. And then once we got, 1, 2, 3, 10 customers, then you go back to those customers and you leverage them as advocates. It's a big uphill battle you have to climb to get to any substantial adoption. And if you're going to try to plow that road yourself, it's damn tough. So for us, I always kind of make fun of it or think of it as, think of how we did the business or how the U.S. did business in the 1950s. You knew your neighbors, you knew your customers, you knew their wives, their kids, their hobbies, all those things. And what that type of relationship did was you built a foundation where you could trust them. They trust you. They'll have your back when things aren't going well, and they will fight for you if you ask them to. And so for us, those first 100 customers, we have very strong relationships with. I know who they are. They still call me to this day. And because we built such strong relationships with them is what really launched us into an exponential growth company.
I remember Hannah, who's on your team yet,
Yep.
who's a student at Iowa State, came to me, and I think her schedule was she had class only on Tuesday, Thursdays. So she had Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and she wanted to work. So she said, I would be interested in working for a startup. I said, great, I can try to help. I said, what kind of a startup do you want to work for? And she said, not what kind, I know which one. I said, oh, who? She said, Performance Livestock Analytics. And I said, why? And she said, my dad uses their product, won't stop talking about it, and he doesn't use any technology. So whatever they have going on, I want to be a part of.
Yeah, I think, that type of experience with companies like ours, for like our team is young. I look back when we were young, working with early stage, high growth companies. I always say, resume is built off experiences, not experience, right? And you gain experiences, and I call them dog years, when you work with an early stage, high growth company, because your duties and tasks are so much more, and you have to be adaptive as an individual within your role. You have to be good, and you honestly are required to mature a little quicker, but work hard, play hard, and work in really neat environments. So I think it's, for us, it's an experience that I'll always cherish. It was really the launching pad for us to go tackle this and be fearless. And I think for so many other students, I wish, if you looked at, these universities, these kids coming out of school, there wasn't an entrepreneur program when I was at Iowa State, right? There wasn't, and I never even thought of working with startups when I graduated college. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I think I mentioned, what was it, almost a couple weeks ago, as far as the job opportunities for talented individuals coming out of school, that, a regional manager job opens up with a very good branded company, John Deere, whatnot. There's a line of 250 kids putting their resume on the table for that job. It's very competitive. It's a known entity, known job. But, I think these students need to seek out these other early stage startup opportunities, because their growth within their career path with those type of companies, I think, is so much, more opportunistic than even these branded companies out there that offer the brand and the benefits. Coming out of college, now's your time to take the risk, right? You don't have the kids to support. You can live off of nothing. Go join that journey, take the risks, and you'll never look back.
And I'm working on it, but it's a challenge.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, gosh, if I get a job with Deere or Monsanto or whatever, my parents know what that is. It seems more secure. And I tell them, I can literally see it a year later when my students come back. If they work for a startup, the intensity of experience, the opportunity to take responsibility, just the whole package, right? They are a much more mature professional. Even if it doesn't work out for a whole long time, it doesn't matter, because things change so fast with the startup. You're going to emerge from that.
Yep.
Just like I see your teams. Just good, great, really talented team of people.
Absolutely.
Speaking of which, you two guys have been friends for a long, long time, and but you make a really good team as well. Can you talk a little bit about that element of kind of coming into it with somebody that you knew, and having, at least to me, what appears to have a complementary skill set and in demeanors, but kind of figured out how to make it all work?
Yeah, it was probably more complimentary than we ever thought of initially. We just worked together. When we were at Climate, I went to Dustin. Dustin built this farm bill tool at Climate that just we put it in the hands of all these crop insurance agents, and it was the tool of choice, right? And he built this user experience into it. And I was like, you've kind of got a knack at this. Could you help me on this? Could we go do this? And so we just went and did it. But and I think that's part of the big success here, is that we work so well together. And not that we just work well together, but it's more we're very good at different things. And I think that's when you build any team, it's not building a team member that you like or that you're friends with. It's like, you know, what piece of the puzzle do they fit into? Because, you know, as entrepreneurs, you know, I always talk about, you know, skydiving, right? You know, the parachute won't open unless you don't jump, right? And we're the ones jumping, and our team is the parachute. They're there to make sure things work, things happen, and that we make it to the ground. And so building that parachute is part of building just a great team. You know, what really made an impression on us is that me and Dustin had an introductory call with the CEO of Zoetis. I think it was right before the acquisition. First comment right out of the gate was, "How'd you build such an amazing team?" You know, and so, you know, we provided, honestly,
the largest animal health company in the
yeah,
world.
yeah, exactly. And, you know, we provided a lot of transparency throughout the process. If you think about how this process transpired, a lot of our leadership team, most all of them were involved. They were every step of the process. They were in those meetings with those other leadership team members and going toe to toe, right? And talking about their expertise, how they win in their roles, how they lead their teams. And so, you know, that's a huge piece of the puzzle too, is not just having the idea, you know, going out and getting sales, but just building a world-class team. And for us, it wasn't about just putting job opportunities out there. We went and figured out who we wanted to acquire, and we went after them, right? In certain cases, we went and found those people, brought them in, and convinced them to quit their job and come work here, right?
Let them know that they needed to make a change.
Yeah, that's right. And so, you know, that's part of it too. You know, when you build a company, is that, you know, there's so much more things that we offer than just payroll, salary, that are so conducive for an individual to join us on this journey.
I mean, I tell students that if you want to do the entrepreneurial thing, really what you're trying to do is learn how to use the two most powerful words in the English language. Follow me. And that's
Yep.
part of it.
Yep.
So, Dustin, you know, part of what you and Dane have brought, you know, Dane uses the word fearless, but you've been great members of kind of our Ag Startup Engine little community. And I love the banter might be one word, trash talk might be another, but I love, you know, another thing that I talk to young people about is you have to get your swagger. You know, you got to have kind of confidence, and, you know, you guys have got your swagger, that's for sure. Can you talk about that and the culture that you've built, and even culture you've tried to build among some of the other founders that are a part of our world?
Yeah. So, you know, in my opinion, it's so much about building relationships with the people that you're around, and building a relationship in a way that, you know, they will go to battle for you no matter what, right? And those types of relationships aren't built just by being polite all the time. It's somebody that knows who you are, knows what you like, knows that, hey, we can goof around, but we also know how to turn on the switch to get things done when we need to get them done. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we do banter around, but anytime you banter with one another, it's a sign that you're truly building a strong relationship with that individual. Most times when somebody's giving you crap, it's because they actually care about you and they know that you can take it. And the people that are not in that banter are generally, they don't have that relationship built. So it's kind of a goofy thing that we do here. We don't sugarcoat a lot of things. We say it how it is, and we laugh about it. It's incredible to look back at our team and having the understanding of, you know, what my skills are and where my skills are lacking, and then finding those individuals to fill those gaps, right? And you can have a perception if you don't have a little of that banter, if you're not upfront with your colleagues, you may not expose their lacking of certain skills, right? And a good team understands who's good at what, who's not good at other things, and they move the pieces around to make those pieces fit at the highest caliber performance at all levels. And so we give each other shit, but that's because we care about one another, and it makes it enjoyable. And I know that the people on my team will go to battle for me when I need them. But it also allows us to be very upfront with one another, say what we truly think, and know that nothing that we say is truly an attack against them individually, which allows us to be very efficient in making decisions moving forward. And I think that's one of the greatest skill sets that our team has, is being upfront, being very blunt on what we like, what we don't like. Dane has always said, if it's not good, if it's just okay, it's not good, right? To us, everything has to be good, and you have to be upfront with everybody on your team, no matter having no fear of hurting any feelings. And that's the type of culture that we create there.
Well, so much oxygen is just wasted of people trying not to say something when it is just simpler just to say it. And creating a culture around that needs to come from the top, and you guys have done a really good job of that.
That's right.
So, Dane, you mentioned earlier exit, and it's not like you're leaving anything. And in a lot of ways, it is a poor term, but it kind of represents a next step. So you've had a couple of months now as part of Zoetis. For you, and you too, Dustin. What's changed? What's the same? What's changed with the transition?
Yeah, there's throughout the process, it's, obviously there's a lot of integration and introductions. Right, they have a U.S. cattle sales team, products, they interact with the same customers we do in a lot of cases. And so, for us, for myself and Dustin, it's really maturing more of our processes. When you think about planning our next launches, looking at how we execute the next strategy, lead these teams, looking at it from a quarterly, annual basis. So, naturally we become a little more formalized and process oriented within what we do, just because, you could say that within any large business that naturally that would happen, but it's inevitable because there's just so many people now to coordinate. And there's so much more at stake as far as the opportunity. And to make sure everyone's aware of it and the communication. And so, obviously that changes a little bit when we think about what we do, but really that's our role as we see it, to kind of guard our teams to continue to keep the culture and innovate and do their jobs. But otherwise it's been a great transition.
Yeah, it creates an opportunity to access more resources. I mean, the amount of intellectual giants that are part of this organization now helping us make the right and proper decision and the right timing and things, and giving us the resources that we can tackle challenges that we may have not have tackled for a couple of years. But it moves things forward for us. It's it's so important when you take an exit, to find a partner that you want to work with, right? And that sees the same vision you do on the direction of where this technology is going, and what is that technology capable of doing, 5-10 years down the road. And that's what we felt we found. And it was important for us to find that. It was important for us to find the right partner as we take this next step in our journey. Yeah, I don't like the word exit, because an exit means you've run to a place where you don't want to go any further. But truly the opportunity in front of us is so outstanding that we're both extremely excited about what's to come.
Was that for you guys where it really clicked with Zoetis, was kind of on the long-term vision, where you could say this is the right partner for us to keep the business moving forward?
Yeah, it was the right partner in the perspective of the company, the business itself. It was the right company from the perspective of our employees. It's the right company from the perspective of our customers.
Mm-hmm.
When you put it all in the context, they truly see the vision. They want us to continue to be an agile entity, and they'll give us a resource to allow us to do that.
Oh, very cool. Entrepreneurs with high growth businesses like yours are asked to kind of balance two things. And, one is the commitment to be, fully in the business, but the other one's to look kind of longer term, and for investors at least, be able to identify exit opportunities. And, that has always seemed to me like you guys have obviously navigated it very successfully, but for entrepreneurs more at the beginning stage, that's always seems to me a really challenging thing. What does it take to sort of effectively balance those two ideas over the course of going from start, to where you are today?
Yeah, I think obviously as you're starting a business, and when you think of it like that, it's overwhelming to any young individual to go start a business. And, I always say, as a young individual starting a business, all you really ever need is a commitment to the next step, right? And if you focus on executing that next step, and really getting to a launching point or an MVP onto the market, getting it in the hands of customers, I think that's, number one critical as far as thinking of it like that. Could have me and Dustin initially as we were launching this thinking, build this long-term vision of how we were going to do this and the connected ecosystem we were building, the platform play, how we digitize an industry. Yeah, sure. But, it honestly, none of that matters unless people put their hands on it, start using it and paying you for it. Right. And so I think that's just so fundamental, is that anyone starting a business or has an idea, just get to work, right? Go to that next step. You'll naturally evolve into that thought process. I think businesses do. And it's important they do that. I've seen other startups, growth companies that haven't evolved that part of their business of like, okay, how do we truly mature what we're doing now as to a more big picture perspective and really think about that in everything of what we do, right? We made that transition. If you look at our office over a year ago at that airport versus where we're at now, you can see and feel it within even our workspace, right? And how we talk, how we build our marketing, our branding, and even just how we talk about the platform play and the connected ecosystem. That language continues to evolve as we look to build a business. And so, that's one thing, I've always focused on was maybe more of the long-term strategic thought process and working with venture capital groups and investors and how we look at the next step of the business. Where Dustin's, as we talked about earlier, we fit together well, right? He's a true operator in the sense that he can model, forecast, run a business and be a true operator in that sense. And so we both kind of overlay. We get in the room together with anyone. We can both pitch anyone, right? Dustin's the one that won the Papa John pitch competition for granted, right? So, it just takes, it takes, I think just lighting the fire first before you even think about how big you're going to get it.
I agree. And, just to echo more what Dane is saying is, you just have to be comfortable and confident in taking that next step. Don't always look so far down the line on where you see the company at, because it may deviate from that fairly quickly. So it's truly having that long-term goal, but really focusing on the small steps that take you to that inevitable goal that you have. And, one thing that you see in a lot of startups and a lot of entrepreneurs is they feel like they need to have everything on their shoulders. Everything needs to fall on them. Dane and I were lucky enough to go about this, together as co-founders. But, even if it was just one of us, if I had put myself in the shoes of, let's say Dustin Balsley just started PLA and he was trying to do everything that needed to be done, I don't think I would have been effective. I don't think I would have been effective unless I found somebody like a Dane Kuper to help me with the things that I'm not good at, right? Because there's a lot of time and energy needed to run the business, but there's also a lot of energy that needs to be towards looking at the future and putting the work into to make those next steps easier and easier and easier. So like Dane said, we work very well together because we both have some very unique skill sets. But, any entrepreneur that is starting their business by themselves, I think they'll quickly realize saying, hey, it would be nice to have somebody that I could fully trust and that could execute at a high level on the tasks that I may not be an expert in. And that's a hard decision to make because it feels like you're giving part of your baby away, but it's so critical for your mental health and the success of the success of the company.
Well, and you guys talk about getting customers and providing value. I mean, as I think back to my own businesses, right, the things you never forget are those early customers and when you do right by them and create value. I mean, you never forget those first customers' names ever. Never. Well, part of what academics who look at entrepreneurship do is that they describe kind of the entrepreneurial process in different steps. And there's all kinds of ways that they do this, from, identifying the opportunity to building the business. And then, the last one is, or sort of the final step is harvesting rewards as one description. And, rewards can certainly be financial, but it's a lot more than that. So, as you and your team and your investors, certainly harvested some award, but how do you think about kind of the rewards to yourselves of going through this process, and kind of what you value and what you'll remember, and kind of what you continue to look forward to as part of the process of building this business?
Yeah, looking back, I think where we're at today, it's like our biggest struggles probably are the biggest things we'll appreciate looking back. You know what I mean? I was saying, remember when we had to battle through this? Remember we were in this position and we had to fight out of it? And so I think that's, in the heat of those battles, it sucks, right? And you fight through it and you figure it out, and you wake up and attack each day. Some days it feels like you make progress, some days you don't. But I think, the biggest reward of that is this journey and the storyline that was written here, right? And that's one thing that you can't put a price on, and whether it's looking back or even where we were at prior to the acquisition, right? There was a storyline there that you just could not unwrite or provide a dollar amount on. And so, the value of the journey and those experiences is something that, I think you probably underestimate, because you're just waking up and attacking each day, right? And you don't sit there and write down those milestones like we were talking, or the struggles you had to battle through and figure out. But that's probably the first thing I really appreciate. And then for me, secondly, it's like the team, right? And so, we all go to work every day with each other, talking to each other, but the level of appreciation I have, and I know Dustin has, for that team, right? We talk about them, running through a brick wall for us. We would do the same for any one of those individuals because of the way they just went to bat for us every single day, right? And so that type of experience, for, regardless of the outcome, is something that has just exponential value of building those relationships, working with a team that's in the trench together. It's just such an amazing experience.
Yeah. It's, to me, as you think about what Dane's saying, you will miss those challenging days. And I think it's because, a challenge gives you a purpose in life, right? And purpose generates happiness for an individual. And so when in a startup, challenges are inevitable and they are a constant battle, but it truly gives you purpose every moment of every day. You know, even you're not, when you're running a startup, it's not an 8 to 5 job, because you wake up in the morning and your first thought is, what fire do I need to put out today? Or what am I doing to move the company forward to reach my inevitable goal? And that's constantly going through your head from the moment you wake up to the moment you fall asleep. And so I see, you always hear entrepreneurs that when they take a true exit, or they take an exit with a company that they're not excited to work for or work with, you know, they lose that purpose. They lose that happiness. And so, you know, my advice to anybody would be to embrace the challenges that are in front of you. Embrace challenges that you can go attack and create purpose in your life. Because if you have purpose, that's where you're going to find your happiness, and you're going to enjoy what you do every single day. And that's what Dane and I continue to do upon this exit, is what are the new challenges that are put in front of us? And that's given us purpose.
And it wouldn't be a challenge if you hit it every time, you know, if you got it right every time.
Well, I wouldn't say that, you know.
Well, that, you know, even too, part of that journey is the, you know, you can go to a lot of people for advice. You know, the state of Iowa has a ton of resources, and Iowa State, the Ag Engine, like, you know, that whole group provides a great, you know, foundation and resources to help you. But, you know, also to any entrepreneur, and even realization through this process, is that, you know, you can always get people's opinions and they'll give you answers, but they'll only ever be their opinions, right? No one ever has the right answer, right? They have an answer that could have a lot of rightful things to it, but no one ever truly has the perfect answer. Like, you're on that journey, and it's a discovery process the whole way, right? When we were raising our funding round, our initial one, we were raising it anywhere from 1 to 20 million. Like, and we really didn't know what we wanted to raise or understand that until we were 3/4 through just the process. It was a commitment to the top, but the road to get there was unpaved, right? And so you're walking it. There's going to be ambiguity, and it's a discovery path. And you know, you'll seek opinions, but there won't be answers, right? You have to discover that yourself. Whether it's how you build your team, how you fund your business, how you partner, how you build revenue models. Like, that's a discovery path for anyone. Even if we went and started another business, it would be another discovery path. Just because we did it here this way doesn't mean it wouldn't work. It would work that way on the next journey, right? And so it's part of the process, and it's a good thing to understand now, and a realization we had along the way pretty early is that we're just committed to the process and the journey without knowing what the answer was.
I was thinking about starting my first businesses and quitting my steady job. I met an experienced entrepreneur who's like in his 60s and been at it for a long time. And what I wanted from him, I thought, was to tell me whether my idea for my business was good enough to kind of quit my job, in his judgment, right? And he wasn't very interested in my business, but he kept asking me really pointed personal questions. And so finally I'm like, Ed, you know, like, you're asking all these personal questions. And to your guys' kind of narrative here, you know, he looked at me and he said, Kevin, I've been doing this for 27 years. I jump out of bed every morning for one of two reasons. One, just really looking forward to what I've got to tackle that day. Number two, an abject fear of failure and bankruptcy, you know?
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to figure out is whether you're wired to go on that kind of a journey, to use the word that you guys use.
Yeah, and you use your competitive failures as motivation, right? The first group meeting Dustin pitched in Des Moines about our business and what it was worth, they pretty much kicked him out of that meeting, right? And believe it or not, that was the best motivation ever. I have a letter sitting on my wall that's a denial funding letter from a found in Iowa, right? I sit there, and when I get lazy at my desk during the weeks, I turn to the right and look at it. The formal denial letter, right? It's not failure, it's motivation. So it's just, keeping that spirit and morale is key too, but
Yeah.
definitely appreciate those too.
Well, typically we've got a lot of entrepreneurs at the very beginning part, or maybe even just aspirational part of thinking about a business, and they're watching this. Do you have any final thoughts or reflections for those people kind of thinking about the very beginning parts of their entrepreneurial journey?
To me, you just got to go out and do it. And you just have to start putting pen to paper. You think about the amount of hours in a day that you have, or the amount of mind share that you have available to you. And if you really measure out how much of your time is spent on entertainment, whether it be Netflix or video games or anything of those sort. Imagine if you didn't play video games for an entire year, you didn't watch Netflix for an entire year, and you spent that year trying something new, trying to start a company, try to build a business plan, try to learn how to code, how to learn how to design. The amount of value that brings to you long term is extremely significant. That was one decision that I made, probably 2 years before, Dane and I started working together, that truly made me capable of fulfilling the tasks that Dane had set in front of me, but also jump-started my acumen in running a startup. And so you think about all that time that is wasted, and I shouldn't say wasted. I mean, you're choosing to pick entertainment over something else. But, ask yourself, saying, what if I did that for an extended period of time? What bad thing could come out of that? Even if your first company fails, your second company fails, in those periods you have learned a lot of lessons that puts you in a position to be more successful in that third go. Mm-hmm. My first startup was a failure, but I took much of what I learned in that first startup failure and I translated it into PLA. Hell, our first designs for Performance Beef were virtually the exact same designs of my first failed startup.
How about that?
Yeah, for me, Kevin, I think there's three things. Is that, the biggest regrets you have in life are the things you didn't go do, right? And it's kind of taking that attitude of saying, okay, if I don't go try this or do it, you're going to regret it someday. You just are, right? And, probably the second thing, I mentioned it earlier, is that, all you need is a commitment to that next step, right? The grand vision, everything else, you can think about it, lay in bed at night, formalize it in your brain, but take that commitment to the next step. Let the rest of that overwhelming process come at a later date, right? Tackle it. And I think, for me, the third thing is that when you think about defining success and getting it done, right, the odds are against you, right? The odds are against you. So don't think about, I think you don't fall over the minor details of, hey, I'm going to have to give this person a little equity to come in and help me get it done, to pay this person, or utilizing resources, because, the success of getting it done is whether you got there or not, right? And it's building the resources you need to get there, right? And don't get caught up in the minor details of what you have to give up along the way. There's going to be things you'll give up. You negotiate your ass off no matter what you do and get the best terms you possibly can no matter where you're at. But at the end of the day, you need to think about building a business of defining success of what it's going to take to get there and making sure you're doing that, right? And so I think just keeping that mentality is definitely important too, because I'm glad we did.
Well, thank you guys for taking time today. And, you've just done a great job and are a great example for the rest of us to look at for how to build a great business and a great team. So, congratulations on the event, and we look forward to watching you continue to make it go.
Yeah, well, thanks for doing this interview.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it, Kevin.